Now you already know how variables can be used in a C program. Now in this lesson, we'll be using constants in the C programming language. As you know, variables are placeholders that can be used to store some values in computer's memory. So the values that are stored in these variables can be used by the program. Constants are another way how values can be stored in the memory. But there is a significant difference between a variable and a constant. As you know, variables' values can be changed during the program execution. But on the other hand, constant's value cannot be changed during the program, which means constant's values are fixed values. To define a constant in the C programming language, we use the define directive, and also you must remember that these define directives has to be placed just after the include directives. Now this slide shows how constants can be defined in a C programming code. Firstly, you can see I have defined the general syntax for a constant. We use the define directive #define and then the shortcut for the constant. Shortcut refers to something like the name of the constant, and then the value of the constant is placed just after the name. Now there are three examples for constants. You can see in these three different statements we define three separate constants. Firstly, you must use the define directive, then the shortcut. In this case, the shortcut is pi, and then the value of the constant. You must remember that when you define a constant, the constant shortcut has to be in all caps, which means you must type it in all capitals. You can see here the pi constant, I've typed in all capital, and the author and area. All these constant names or the constant shortcuts are typed in all capital letters. Constants values can have integers or floating point numbers such as the pi value, and also it can have a string. Like here in this example, you can see the author constant is defined as Dan Brown, and the Dan Brown is a string. Therefore, you can see the string is placed within double quotes. If you define a character as the value of the constant, then the character must be placed within single quotes. And the last constant, you can see the area. The value of the constant is not a number or a string, it's a mathematical expression. 64 multiply 64, it's a mathematical expression. So you must remember that a constant can have a mathematical expression as its value. Now let's see how to create a C program with constants are defined. Now you can see I have created this constant.c C source file in Notepad++ application. Now, as I explained before, constants has to be defined just after the include directive. Now you can see in this program, the line number 1 is the include directive. So any constant that you define has to be placed just after this, which means in the line number 2, I use the define directive like this, then the shortcut pi. After that, the value of this constant, the pi's value is 3.14159. So we define a one constant. We'll define another constant. Again, I use the define directive. Now this time the constant is the author. Now you can see when we type the name of the constant, we typed it in all capital letters, and then the value of the constant. So the value of the constant has to be a string, so it has to be placed in double quotes, Dan Brown, like this. Now at the end of these define directives, you must not use the semicolon, which is an important thing. Normally, you know, the C statements has to be ended with a semicolon, but these defined directives we do not add the semicolon at the end. So now we'll add some print statements. Printf the value of the pi is, I'll be using a placeholder. This time I'll be using a floating point placeholder %f, and then the second parameter of the printf function is the pi semicolon. Now you can see here the pi is the constant, and the value of the constant will be replaced here, and you can see the format specifier is a floating point placeholder, and then the printf statement, my best author is, now I need to use a string placeholder here, which is the %s, and then the second parameter is the author, like this. Now I'll use a printf statement at the end, printf, and this is a new line character just to separate these two lines. So now I save the file and we'll compile this bcc32. The name of the file is constant.c. So the file is compiled. Now we'll run the file, constants. So you can see the program is executed. The value of the pi is 3.141590, and my best author is Dan Brown. So you can see these constant values are printed using the printf statement. Now in the line number 8, you can see we used a floating point placeholder. Now what would happen if you use an integer placeholder like this? We'll see what happens. We'll save the file and compile it again. So you can see the file compiles, no error. We'll run the program. So you can see here we don't get the correct value. You can see it says pi is some different value, which is meaningless. So make sure when you use a constant in a print statement, the correct placeholder must be used. It is very important. So I use F again. Now when I run the program, I'll compile this again, and you can see I get a value with how many decimal points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 decimal points. Now if I want to change this to maybe 2 or 3 decimal points, what should I do? Now in that case you need to modify the placeholder. So what you can do, if I need 3 decimal points, you can put .3 in between the % symbol and the F. You can see I put .3. So I save the file and we'll compile this again. I'll compile it again and then run it again. You can see now I have only 3 decimal points for the value of the constant. So in this lesson we learned how constant can be used in a C program. We created a very simple program to illustrate this, and we'll be creating more C programs in the future that use constants. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope you liked it. Please subscribe, and if you have any doubts about the lesson, please comment it. I hope to reply you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching the video again. Bye.